Mikey and his magic middies. Will they get you over the line this season? Will Jake have Tedesco this week? Maxie, the consistent keeper. Ryan Hadley, Australia's next test fast bowler. Timmy, the 2020 SuperCoach champion. And Savs, the Newcastle. Tommy Turbo tragic.
Are you ready for some football?
We're ready for some football, baby.
All right, here we go.
You're now listening to the SuperCoach Experience podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Mike and Sav Show podcast. The SuperCoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brendan Savage. We are back to the old school days. I hear Mikey. He's right there laughing. I'm joined by the one and only Just Mikey today for the front rows. How are you, Mikey?
Good, mate. A little bit less flattered to be talking about the front rows because it's a bit of a boring one, but yeah,
right.
we got to line up our times, and either way, we're all still going to have to pick 4 front rows, and I still think it's going to be a very important part. So nonetheless, I think there's a few talking points because I think it's the position where everyone's like, oh, I don't know. So back to Mike and Sav's podcast for today, but yeah, we still have the SuperCoach Experience, and then I'm pretty sure you'll be joined by just Jake with the next one. So as always, keen to talk some SuperCoach, and it's getting close.
It's very close. It's like just over a month away. It's very crazy. I know there's ways to tackle the front row right here, and we're going to talk about what the best. We've lost. Whose connection is losing? Is it mine or yours?
I'm not sure. It could be mine, but
our connection's lost. You. It could be mine either. It could be mine too. Who knows?
If the connection's, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you're there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. All right, we're back. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to tackle the front row area, and a lot of people are looking to go cheap, and there are people who are going in the direction where they're just setting and forgetting their front row. Holy crap, this is a nightmare. My mouse has just run out, and I can't do anything about it.
That's all right. We're still live. So, yeah, you're right with the front row.
What a nightmare.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, because I can change internet. So it's all right. We'll keep on going. There's always technical difficulties in the Mike and Savs. Yeah, I can hear.
I know, right? As soon as Mike and Savs are back, there's technical difficulties.
Far out. Yeah, all good. Well, let's keep pumping through anyways. Yeah, we've got lots of front rows to talk about, and I think the big thing will be, like a lot of people are doing, there's so many guns this year, not in this position, but people are going shorter in this position to allow for more guns, and that's going to be the same for me. I can't nail down 2 for now. I have, but I'm going to wait. But I definitely see this where I will plug 2 mid-ranges for the time being. There are a few guns that I'd be happy to start with, but it's just all about fitting in all the other guns and realistically finding someone that can just do a nice job for now till you find out who your gun front rows are. Like last year, Max King really helped a lot of people out, and, you kind of just needed a little time to work it out. So I guess it's all about picking someone that's just going to start you off nicely.
It's real funny you kind of say Max King, because Max King at the start of the year last year, he wasn't reliable to play as a starting player. And I think the tactic a lot of people are looking to go this year is having a 300K player to start the year in the front row. And I don't know if it could be viable, but I feel like every year they always look juicy, but it never works out. Personally, I think I'm going to go the cheaper route, but yeah, it's very hard. Mikey, are you looking to kind of, I know you said 2 mid-ranges, but are they kind of people that you're not going to look at trading out for the season? You think there's value there?
Yeah, I do think there's value there, but it's just hard to work it out because a lot of these guys, for me, there is a few that stand out, but it's dependent on their role, their side, their minutes. But I'll make the decision up of how they line up and there's a lot of changes in clubs with the forwards this year. I found, especially at certain clubs, which means different forward rotations, and that's what's going to come into it. So there's definitely going to be some front rows to pick where will have heaps of value, but the key is just like any of SuperCoach players is finding the right ones. So yeah, I guess we'll dive into it, eh?
Yeah, the lower end teams really have some value there, but is it going to be worth it? We are going to go through the front rows today, but firstly, Lockie Miller looks set to join Newcastle, and we'll start off with some news. Obviously, that means Kalen Ponga is confirmed at 6. What are your thoughts on it? And do you think it's good for Ponga? And is Miller a genuine SuperCoach option now?
I thought so, but I don't think he is for Classic right now. 593k, I got excited, but he's so expensive because of how well he did at the start. Like, he's going to be awesome for draft, picking in your center wings. So for the draft players out there, he'll be one of the top of my picks for my center wing in draft. But yeah, I'm not really keen. Look, I think it's great for the Knights. Is Ponga a 6? We'll work it out, but I kind of like their spine. I know you did a post on the page today, and there's a lot of mixed signals about it. But to be honest, before the Knights made some of these signings, they're a side that I kind of predicted for the bottom, and I think that you can go into like this as a Knights fan with a bit of an open mind, and it might not be as bad as you think. So I'd be, if I was a Knights fan, I'd be excited to see how it goes, because I think Lockie Miller's got a ton of potential. And you actually mentioned that he would be the perfect signing for them, and here he is now signed with the club, and I like it. Like, we haven't seen much from him, but sometimes you got to take a risk there, put some money into those players before they become too good to and end up staying with the club, or another club can offer them double what you can. So it makes sense.
I do understand the Miller signing. I saw it coming from a mile away. Someone was going to snatch him up, and Newcastle, it seemed like the perfect fit only because they wanted Ponga to play 6. And I think the first time he played 6, there was Danny Levi at 9, Connor Watson at fullback. They're both good players, but they're not the right players to fit Ponga. Whereas Lockie Miller, he's a ball-running fullback. Jaden Brayley is a gun 9. I think the platform is there for Kalen Ponga to succeed this year. So if he's fit round 1, I'll highly consider starting with him. But we will get to that. I don't know if we're going to chat about him in the 5'8" podcast, but we'll see. I guess we'll mention him. Yeah. But and a bit of breaking news. Stephen Crichton has informed the club that he's not staying past this year. What are your thoughts on that as a Penrith fan? Obviously, you've got Taruva, Tom Cartwright waiting on the pine, and there's another Isaiah Yongi or something waiting.
Yeah, Tom Jenkins. We've got heaps. But
do you think
look.
Think it's the right move?
Look, we don't know how much money he's getting signed on, so I reckon the fact that they couldn't come to an offer is he wants to play fullback. That'd be the main thing. To give him fullback money and keep him there, it's not going to happen. We can't do it. I received the email about 10 minutes as a Penrith member, 10 minutes before it went everywhere, and I saw the email like, damn, I knew it was coming. But the news the past couple of days was that he really wanted to stay with Penrith, and it just sucks that some of these guys, I wonder if the offer wasn't too far from what he signed on, say it was 100k more, I would have hoped that he would have knocked back the extra 100k just to stay with Penrith a little more, because he's not just a centre to me. Stephen Crichton, he's one of those breakout stars where without his moments, we wouldn't have won some of the games that we did. So very sad to see him go. But yeah, as you said, we've got Taruva. I'd rather them invest a bit more into Tago. We've got plenty of options in the back line and stuff. So can't keep them all. It is what it is. I'd prefer Brian to over Crichton. So yeah, that's just my personal preference.
100%. Let's get into the front rows then now. Obviously, this one is going to be the quicker podcast because front rows is honestly, there's a lot there, but it's about choosing the right one. So we've got Tino up the top there, surprisingly coming off a 67 average. It was a great season for him, and obviously he went really under the radar, but for 5K less, getting a Joe Tarpanay, I think these two are obviously the premium options.
Yeah, I think all those three there may be a touch not overpriced, but they're just too high to start with, just based on, everyone says the same thing about Tarpanay. Not starts slow, but Ricky usually bloods or gives his forwards lower minutes, especially Tarpanay to start with. Curious to see how their forward rotation goes. Big Tino, he'd be someone with a bit of low ownership, but Tino proved himself last year. He's got the jewel there, and he's come out saying, he's the captain of the club. He's come out saying that he still wants a big role and that he doesn't want his minutes to fall off. So I wouldn't be as worried about him with his minutes, but it's a lot of money to fork out. If I wanted to take a gun, I'd prefer someone maybe down the list there, 60, 70K cheaper, that I think has room to grow. I think they're two guys that you'll want to grab at some point. You'll definitely want Tarpanay at some point, but I think the timing's going to be key for both of those guys. Did you think any differently, Savs?
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously as captain of the club, Tino is going to play a massive role for the Titans this year. And he's probably going to replicate what he did last year. But I tend to find that the front rowers do start slow every single year. Front row is kind of a spot where it's such a balance between size and fitness, and they've got the hardest jobs in terms of balance. And what they have to do is they're going to make sure they stay big, but at the same time, they got to be fit, match fit, and match fit is something that takes a few weeks. So I think this is why I like to go the cheaper approach to start round one. Payne Haas has been the exception in the last few years, but he's always got something going on at the start of the year. 662,000. I mean, that's probably down on what he can produce.
Yeah, he had a bit of a lean year for him, and he was the first front rower I picked. Very keen on him, just because he's a guy you can rely on, and I think he can better his season last season. But with all that off-field drama and all the stuff going on in his personal life, I'm just scared to. I got him straight out of my team and go, let's save some money there, go a cheaper guy and use it elsewhere. And obviously, the plan will be to target Payne Haas at some point, but I really just can't go there from the start for now with all those question marks, and it's not for me for now. But he's a gun of that position.
Do you think he's going to be a target at some point, but it's not as clear cut this year compared to most other years where it was always going to be Payne Haas and partnering with someone else. I think Tino and Joe Tarpanay are legit the top runners because of their ceiling, and Payne Haas has kind of put that ceiling away.
Yeah, but that gives you room for improvement. And if he can get back to his best when he clears all this stuff out, he's got a bit more room to move. Think about where he's priced. He's only 40K behind those two blokes you mentioned. And we didn't see as big of a season as from him last year compared to what we have in the past. It's always what's made him a gun was just how many minutes he can play. And I think now the Broncos kind of pack, maybe he won't see those minutes that he once did, but the pedigree is always there, and he's still only young, and he's got room to improve. So I've owned him every year since he's come into the comp, and I definitely see him as a target with one of those other blokes at some point.
All right, I'm going to go through three more front row options that are up the top of the list, and then we're kind of going to pick off some others from across the list. So David Clemmer is in at number 3, 672,000. New club. So obviously coming over from the Newcastle Knights, he was in a role. He was in a good role. Coming across to the Tigers, do you think there's value in what he is priced at, or is he overpriced just on what you can see the Tigers using him?
I definitely think he's overpriced because the Tigers, the one thing they've used their money for, which we all know, is a forward pack. And they already have some really good forwards there. Joe Arrow had an outstanding season. Alex Twell's there. And now you're adding the likes of Papali'i, Bateman, and now Clemmer. I don't know how their forward rotation's got to go. They've got a Toikamanu. They've got all these blokes here. Like, how are they going to fit them all in? So I want to see kind of how, like, they got that Pole who was a Pole. Yeah, he was great last season. Let's have a look how their forward rotation works and see how it goes. But I don't really see David Clemmer being much of an option. High work rate at the Knights, and I think the role he had at the Knights suited him. At the Tigers, though, there's no way in hell I'd do it. Like, we say this, we said it with the Dolphins and that. We want to see how it works.
have a look at the Knights pack this year. They're really struggling for middles, and they relied heavily on David Clemmer. I think to get Jackson Hastings, it was kind of a no-brainer, just knowing that Clemmer wanted to get out of the club. So you don't blame him for that. But at the same time, they lost an important middle, and to the Tigers, who they've got so many middles. And I guess that brings us to the next one, Joe Offengawe, 644,000, pretty much his breakout year, not in terms of NRL, but for SuperCoach. He was pumping them out every week. And if he can produce that this year, he's going to be definitely an option when it comes to the second bye, when the Tigers have bye round 13, and then round, I think, 15 and 18, they have the bye off. So obviously he's going to be an option then. But that being said, can he replicate what he did last year, and will he get the minutes to do so?
Same reasons for that I just mentioned for Clemmer. I don't know. I think he's definitely earned some minutes, but we don't know how that forward rotation is going to work. And yet again, he's pretty expensive. I'm not sure if he can replicate what he did SuperCoach wise for the Tigers. So it's a big wait and see. I don't think his role is going to change too much, but how are they going to use the forward rotation now with the forwards they got, and Clemmer's there too, that can kind of play similar roles. It'll be interesting to see how they rotate, and really what style bench the Tigers go with. Are they going to go with two front rows on the bench and two edges? We need to see the makeup of their bench, because they actually have quite a few options.
They really do. And I guess we can tie this with Stefano. He's starting at quite a cheap price of, I think it's 300. Honestly, I'm all over the place because all the prices have changed. So I was all down packed with everyone's price. He's 319,000 based on a 30 average. We know he can average more than that. But will he get the minutes to do so? I guess I can ask you this question. Are you starting with him?
No. Not at all.
No?
If for some reason he got a starting spot, then I might be baited into starting with him. But nah, I don't think he'll get that role. He's going to be on the bench in my eyes, if he's even in the side at all. If he ever gets a role later down the year with injuries or something like that, then he'll be on your watch list. But you want to try and fill up those bench spots with guys that you think can improve their minutes from last year. He could be one of them. But as I said, the Tigers have heavily signed in this forward position. And although, they signed two edges, it shouldn't affect his minutes. Let's see the makeup of their bench first, to whether or not I do. But they still got Twell, Clemmer, Offengawe. What if Paul's in? There's a lot of front rows there to eat minutes. So I don't see him vastly improving from the start compared to last year, or compared to his minutes last year. Yourself?
I'm going to group the next. Who are we talking about? Stefano.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gives me the vibe of someone like a Bryce Cartwright, kind of. All the potential in the world. He's proved it before, but he just disappoints year after year. Bryce Cartwright is a bit harsh to use him as an example, because I really think he hasn't been put in the right systems and the right situations. And it could be similar to Stefano. Stefano just needs to be given the confidence of starting, and them signing all these middles. Does that put his confidence down? I don't know, but I think we're going to get more of the same from Stefano this year. And he's in my team picker at the moment, but it's a bit of a tough one, because we don't know if last year was skittled by injury. We know he came back from an injury, but did it really affect him? Are they going to use him this year? It's just a bunch of what ifs. And if there's someone that is a bit cheaper who has a similar role, well, then you're better off going with someone like that, because it's a bit of the difference is Stefano, he's shown what he can do before. That being said, Bryce Cartwright broke his jaw last week. So poor Brycey Cartwright. I've seen it nowhere on the news, but good old friend Jake, who is usually here, he reported it to us, and that is such sad news.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate, but now an opportunity is going to be up for whether or not he would have got a utility spot at the Eels, will be a position up available there. So it's going to be an interesting TLG. There's quite a few things to still happen before now. And then
Jake Arthur will retain his spot as the number 14. I'm going to group.
That's most likely.
So I'm going to group these next two together. Tom Jenkins has tuned in on the YouTubes. Keen to hear your thoughts on Cotter. I was going to group him with Tohu Harris. I think they're kind of in a similar role / molds, I guess Tohu Harris is kind of someone who can play second row as well. So there's a chance he starts on the edge, but very similar price, very similar style of SuperCoach player. Compare the pair, Mikey. Who are you ranking 1 and 2?
Pretty quick thinking here. Look, Cotter's a gun, but it's just his minutes keep fluctuating. I'd go Tohu Harris. He presents dual. He's a senior player in the team, and as you said, you can switch around a little bit. I think, the Warriors side, I think they'll be towards the bottom, but I do think there is some spirit and some fight in this pack. Yeah, they also have recruited heavily in the forward pack with Mitch Barnett. There's been a couple of changes there. So what's his minutes going to be like? But yeah, as you said, you bunch these two together because they're very close. Cotter's still got so much more to improve on. And he was awesome to start that back end of the year. Then that injury really slowed him down. So 623K. They're both pretty pricey. If I was to spend money on the front row, I'd probably take a gamble with one of these guys. But the Cowboys too, I'm not too sure how their forward rotation is going to line up. So if I kind of like the rotation and how they're lining up, I'd probably take a punt on Cotter instead, because he just had such a high work rate to start the year last year, and he's got some attacking stats in him, and I think he's only going to keep building with that. So maybe I'm talking myself into Cotter a little bit more, but I'm still not keen on starting with either of these. I'd rather take someone 120K or 150K cheaper, and I think there's quite a few at 100K cheaper. The 100K can be used in many ways to get yourself another second row gun or to load up your halves, which I think is going to be important this year.
I agree. I guess that will stem us in and segue us into. You know what time it is, Mikey? Magic Midi time. Who's on the top of your list for Magic Middies? I don't know. Front row is the best spot for Magic Middies this year. I think second row is just full of them. It's a shame we're not doing the second row episode right now, but Magic Middies, who are you looking at, and who are you really feeling the magic for?
It depends with what we're determining middies to be this year, because the cap's gone up, but what would you determine the middies to be?
I would say
300 to 500.
450 max. 450.
Yeah, see, I've got a lot. I think most of the front rows that I like are just above the mid-ranger range. I don't think there's heaps lower than that. That's why I was going to kind of price mine between 300 to 500, and then the guns 500 to 700. Everyone can have their own takes on that.
The Magic Midi is your thing, so whatever you think it is, that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to roughly go around that price, all around that cast. I think I don't want to start with two of the ones that are many cheaper than the 350 mark, because I think that's where it can trap you. But I don't have anyone on the top, but I've got four guys, which, there's no secret in any of these four guys. And then I'll name them all and we'll break them down. I like Luke Thompson, Corey Horsburgh, Tom Gilbert, and Daniel Saifiti. I think I've got two of those four in my starting side right now. A lot of them have already been mentioned now, but let's start with Luke Thompson, who's the most expensive at 512K. He's shown us potential.
Can I just backtrack just a bit quickly? I did say,
yeah, go.
I said 450 max, but that was based on knowing Daniel Saifiti was 440. Obviously, the cap has gone up, and my range is everywhere. So if anyone's a bit hesitant on, is it actually a midi? Well, I think my thoughts were based on the last cap. So I think 480 is the old 440. So yeah, I agree with your mid-range price, and I love all them options. Tell me why you like them.
So look, obviously I need more preseason. I need lineups will be key to these guys, but they're the four guys that stand out right now that I think can improve on their price and average. Whether or not it's great enough, I think all I want from my front row is to start with, I'd love anything around a 50-point average and have a little bit of upside in there, and then they just plot along till I work out the correct path. Luke Thompson, he's a dual front row, second row. Yes, the Bulldogs have recruited a lot of players. We don't know what that comes to, but he's a bit of a senior player for them, and he's either going to drop off and start to lose all those minutes and go back home, or he's going to finally step up. He's had a lot of go back home to England. He's had him a lot of them do. But
no.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
good
had a lot of
on.
suspensions and that, and I've always been sucked into him, but he's got a really big PPM, and I still think he's a
Yep.
workhorse, and he's a bit pricey. I could see myself starting with someone like here because I think Bulldogs are a team that are going to improve, and I think their attack's going to be a lot better this year. I'm not sure on their defense, but I think their attack could be a lot better. So I like him. Horsburgh, the main reason I like him is only if he starts at lock. Maybe before I continue on him, did you want to add anything to Luke Thompson?
I really like Luke Thompson, and in the past he's been a real good shout for little stints here and there, but he just hasn't been able to string it together. If there's no disruptions this preseason, 512,000 with the dual flexibility, I think it makes it a bit awkward that he is second row because you're going to be tempted to put him up there, and that's going to suck, but it's going to be handy when you need to use it. So I think that's really handy. I would only have him in the front row because I think there's a lot of options in the second row, but Luke Thompson, he's based at a 48.7 average here in 13 games, and I think he can really push to the average 60s, especially if he's getting the minutes, and I think he will get the minutes. It'll just depend. Paul Vaughan's gone, so there's minutes to be shared there, and that they might bring in Franklin Pele, so he'll get eased into it. And if he doesn't play, then it'll be someone else who's a bit less experienced, or they're going to have, that Josh Jackson rotate through the middle last year. He's gone, so maybe RFM rotates through the middle. I don't know, but I really like him, and I think him compared to Horsburgh, or I feel like they're all quite similar. Like they're all very underpriced for what they can produce.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But it's just the key word that you said in there is if he gets the minute. So that's going to be the talking point there. And yet again, a lot of these guys, they're going to come with risk, and we don't know what their minutes are going to be like. That's just the gamble, and we're going to have to gamble in a couple of them. Horsburgh, only if he gets the lock position. Adam Elliott's left the club. Yeah, they always have a lot of forwards banging the door down. Ryan Sutton has also left. Horsburgh's always had the potential, and he's got a very SuperCoach friendly game when it comes to he's kind of that meat and potatoes front row that just has a high work rate. He was a mid-ranger that season where he got really upset and threw the finger. I had him, and he was pretty good for an average there. So 48 average, very similar. He's also becomes a dual. So he's also someone that I'll have on my radar that I think could do pretty well for you from the start. Anything to add on him? I know you're not the biggest Raiders fan. But...
No. I think the Raiders are going to do well this year. Jamal Fogarty, another season. I think he's a massive underrated player for their side. So I think another year with him is going to do well. And I'm very excited to see Corey Hauer-Naira possibly get a start. I guess we'll see what happens there, and we'll speak about it next episode. But yeah, I'm really excited for the Raiders. And I think their style of play, it's really improved. Jack Whiten, he's a freak. We saw in the World Cup and Origin just how good he is. And I think another year with these young guys, Harley Sexy Shields, I'm really excited for the Raiders this year. I think they'll do well.
Yeah, there you go. The other one, Tom Gilbert, I just liked what I saw at the Cowboys. Yep. I actually have him. So I don't have the other two. I actually have him at the moment. Yet again, from all the reports that we've had, he's going to be the starting lock. He does have competition in Ray Stone, but compared to other clubs, there's not a super mega amount of competition with a bit of experience forwards, and he's a young forward that's on the rise. I liked what I saw at the Cowboys, as I just said. He also comes in at dual. All these three I just mentioned come in at dual, which I think is handy because there are a few cheapies, which we'll talk about, that do have front row or second row or dual. So you can kind of, utilize that early on. The key is just, I'm not sure how many minutes, but if I see that bench and I don't see too many middle forwards of experience, I might be willing to take that risk there because we know that Jesse Bromwich is going to start at prop. He's a bit of a younger body. Gilbert might rotate to the front row, and we don't know what's going to happen there. They've also got Mark Nichols. He's getting a bit older now too, so We know what Wayne Bennett is like with his forwards, so that could be the main risk. But someone in that forward pack is going to have to step up and take on that real, intense role. And at this stage, I'm going to punt and say it could be Gilbert. So I'm very keen on him. Over to you, Sabs.
Yeah, I really like Gilbert as well. Did you group anyone else in that kind of price range, or was that it?
I got one more. I got Saifiti, who's a bit cheaper.
There was Saifiti. Yeah,
he's $4.94 by the way. Tom Gilbert.
Yeah, I think Gilbert. Just got selected for Origin last year, so I think he kind of has the most to prove out of all of them. Whereas there's a lot of them in that price range, like Corey Horsburgh, like he's been around for a few years. Everyone knows what he's like. I think he's kind of gone past his peak, whereas Gilbert is still yet to hit his peak. And I think this year could do it, getting the starting lock role. I don't know if he's got any ball playing in him, but this could, it really could help him. If he does use some ball playing, could get him some attacking stats. That being said, Wayne is kind of an older school coach, obviously because he's older. And the way the Dolphins play might not need a ball playing lock, so that could be good for Gilbert as well. So either way, he's going to be given the license to just run, hit the ball, make your tackles, or he's going to go to another level this year with some try assists and some attacking stats.
Yeah, price at a 47 average. So you want to, obviously, if you're selecting, you want to hope that he upticks that average and maybe averages a bit more minutes, which he potentially could. But he just seems like that guy that can just punch out some points for you, just with some tackles and runs. And he's just a hard-working forward, obviously, as you said, in that Origin spot. So, right now we're just going off what we have in front of us. And it's a bit of a deadwood position. So for now, I like him. And Saifiti's one that a lot of people are split on. Look, I understand that a lot of people are more excited about him because Clemmer's leaving, and because Clemmer's leaving, they think that means Saifiti's going to get the minutes. That's not the reason why I like him. I like him mainly because we saw what he could do the season before. He has attacking upside, and last year his brother kind of did what he did the season before. So I'm backing it to be Daniel's turn. He's huge. They're both big boys, and I just think he's underpriced on what he's achieved in past seasons, and you've got to pick someone there. You've got to take a risk, and if Knights have a bit of an easier draw, that's not going to benefit the forwards too much. But if they get onto a bit of a roll, build some confidence, it could see an uptick in many of their players. So, as I said, you've got to pick two of them, and for a front row, Saifiti he has a little bit of upside that I like, can score some tries, and as you said, Brayley's back. He's fit. When he did good, Brayley was there feeding him the ball. And Brayley loves that run to the line, a little bit of a short ball. And it's going to benefit some of these front rowers. So I'm hoping that combination can work. And that's why I think he's priced at a 46 average. Can we see a big enough average to make it worthwhile? No, but could he get you off to a good start and not have to worry about that position? I think so.
I think last year for a down year, to come out with still a 46 average, that's still pretty good. So I think he's going to bounce back this year. He's going to get the attacking stats, and even his brother is at value. They're both going to benefit from Clemmer leaving. So it just depends on which one you think is going to benefit more. I think Daniel will, because he'll take that leader's role. At the price, 436, Martin Tapau's left the club of Manly. So there's a spot there. Taniela Paseka at 436. He's looking juiced at the moment. What are your thoughts on him?
Didn't really think much of him until we kind of saw that photo. And yeah, I do think Manly will have a little bit of room for opportunity, but I've currently got two Manly players in my side. And the key, I don't think you could start with three of them as they got the round 2 bye. So I'm kind of looking ahead. I think if you picked a mid-range forward and you're carrying two dog crap blokes that you're hoping will do well, you're going to have to play one of them in round 3. That's where the jewels are going to come in handy. So, sorry, you're going to have to play one of them in round 2. And what if, you pick like Davey Moore and you pick someone else like Kepi and they both score 25, and then you're stuck. And although, yeah, that's why someone like Paseka is a perfect guy to just watch. And if I like what I see, he'll be someone that I'll bring in previously to round 4 as they're on the bye. So, yeah, but I definitely an option. If they didn't have that bye and he's starting at round 1 and he doesn't have many guys on the bench, and yeah, he's definitely an option. But yeah, the buys are going to alter how I start my side for sure.
There's a couple of other mid-ranges we're going to go through, and then we'll look at the cheapies. We've got Christian Welch, Lindsay Collins, and also there's one more. That is it. Christian Welch and Lindsay Collins. What are your thoughts on them at the price? And are you interested? Oh, sorry, there's one more. There's one more. Royce Hunt, who at the end of last year had a run of games with more minutes starting. He looked the goods, but it's kind of been the same story every year. But we've got Aiden Tolman leaving. We've got Andrew Fafita leaving. So there is minutes to be shared.
Yeah, we'll start on Royce Hunt since you mentioned already that about him. Everything I would have said about him. Is it going to be the case now with the fully Sharks lot? I don't know. I'm pretty sure Brendan Uele was missing in some of those matches, or whether or not he could bite into his time.
Yeah, I think Finucane was gone as well.
Yeah, look, I think he could definitely be a bit of an option. He was great scoring some tries on that bench, but I just don't know if he's someone that he's not someone I'm going to start with yet. I know I'm pretty boring with some of our responses and say that I'm just going to wait and see, but this is a case in such a dead position. It's not like the center wing where you can take a punt and hope they'll score some tries. Your forwards, your front rowers need some minutes to score some points. That's what you need, or you need a bit of attacking upside from them. And then you've got to look at their competition, because most of these guys don't play 80 minutes. So that's why the front row is such a tricky position, because you're picking guys based on guys that are most likely going to get rest. So that's my answer on him. Christian Welch, I did like him at the start, but now I don't like him. I definitely think he might be an option at some point, but he's coming back from that big ACL injury. So I don't know if he can be an option from the start. Sorry, Sabs, take over. I need to ban these dogs from this room.
Nah, that's all right. And yeah, I spoke about Lindsay Collins as well. I think Lindsay Collins, he kind of had the promise last year, and he didn't live up to it as well. You know, the suspensions, the injuries. I think he's going to have them games where he tons up, he scores well, but I don't think Lindsay Collins is the kind of guy that presents value at the start of the year. Where on the other hand, I think Royce Hunt probably provides a bit more value than Collins at 455. I think there is room to move there. Like Royce Hunt's game was without Hamlin, Uele, and Finucane. But Andrew Fafita and Tolman still played that game. So they're two middles that are going to leave. So is that more of what we're going to see with Royce Hunt, with two middles out of the side? We don't know. Personally, because it's so up in the air, I think I'd rather a Daniel Saifiti, who he's going to benefit. There's value there. He's just got to show it to us. Christian Welch, I don't know. I don't think his game isn't based on elusiveness. So his game is based on taking a hit up, throwing an offload, and I think he's going to do that. So at the price, I think he's okay. But I think there are much better options. Moving on to the cheaper options, though, there's plenty in the front row. It's just on how it works out. There's Sean Kepi at 274, Franklin Pele 216, Jack Hetherington at 266. Which cheapies are you eyeing off, Mikey?
I like Hetherington just because I think there's potential there. He's coming cheap, could get a good role at the Knights. I've got him in the second row at the moment just as a dual, just kind of how my side's working at the moment. Aaron Pene's going back to the Storm, 270k. He looked the goods at the Storm, went away from the Storm and looked pretty poo. So they've lost a lot of punch in the Storm. So surely they can improve there. So I've got him for now. I like Davey Mole from the Rabbitohs, who's had a couple of seasons to blood now, and I think can get a little bit more minutes and improve on what we saw, which is why I like him. Pele, I'm not too sure he's going to get a big enough role to be an option. I think you've always got to talk about Spencer Linu. Comes in at a relatively cheap price.
Yep.
he'll be on the bench there. And he just has such of an impact. Is this the season where he finally gets a bit more minutes, or is either going to keep it the same because with the minutes he gets, it works? So there are a few of the cheaper options that I'm keen, like probably pick two of those to start. But as I said, preseason trials and lineups will determine to which two I name. But there is a bunch to choose from. So I'm sure a couple of these guys will make some money, whether it's a slow burn or not.
There is so many to choose from, and I think you could just mention every single player in SuperCoach, and there could be a case for either of them. Mikey, who's in your starting side at the moment? And I guess that's how we'll finish it. How are we starting, and what approach are we taking, and how is it beneficial for our side?
Sorry. So I've kind of mentioned him. Yeah, I'm good. I realise. So I kind of mentioned him. Tom Gilbert and Daniel Saifiti are my starters for now, and then I've got Penne and Mole. The two bench runs are kind of placeholders. The other guy I forgot to mention that you did is Kepi. I think he's a very cheap price that can improve on what he had. So for now, and Saifiti and Gilbert can exchange with some of the others. I kind of like Luke Thompson a bit better than Gilbert, but right now with my cap space, to make it a bit more of an even side, I have chosen the cheaper option in Gilbert for now. But as I said, my front row is nowhere near confirmed. I think most people right now that are using the team picker kind of have that as a placeholder. So that's going to be the position where I am willing to just, hinder, and I can to strengthen the other side. So my team always changes heaps. It's slowly changing now. I'm looking at it, and it's looking good. But I think a lot of other teams will have similar teams. So that's what I'm going with for now. What about you, Savs?
I'm very light there. I'm starting with Daniel Saifiti. I think I'd prefer Luke Thompson, but obviously the cap space is an issue. My second front row is Jack Hetherington, and I've also got Sean Kepi and Franklin Pele in there at the moment. I want to be able to have 2-gun halves, 2-gun 5/8s, 2-gun fullbacks, and 2-gun hookers, and also a gun center in there. So I think I'm really scabbing out here. I think with someone like a Dan Saifiti at 46 average from last year can make his way up to a 60 average, and I think that's where I'm going to get the value and able to get these high ceiling players for the first 5 weeks. I think that's the way to go about it. I think is there a world where you see yourself any world where you see anyone starting with 2-gun front rowers, or one like a Joe Tarpany or a Tino?
I do see a world where that's goalable, because I know so many people that are doing that, because I guess the tactic of doing that is then you don't have to worry about it if it works out the way it does. So if there's enough cheap options, I could see myself starting with one potential player, like one kind of gun, and then matching it with a mid-ranger. Yep. But look, I see where it works, especially if one of them's a dual. I like it. But I just, if you want 2-gun halves, 2-gun fullbacks, a gun hooker, there's no way you can do that. So that is, I think anyone that's got the 2 mid-rangers and the cheap front rowers are doing that exact strategy where they're grabbing Cleary, Hines, they'll grab a good 5'8", they'll grab 2 good fullbacks, and they're going to grab a good hooker like Harry Grant. So, that's exactly kind of what I'm doing. So that's why my build is the way it is, and I'm sure yours is very similar. And I know a lot of the other streamers have a very similar setup because they are stacking all those other positions, which I think this year I'm going to just play vanilla at the start, goat the guns in, worry about the rest, because all these other years where I've tried to be different, apart from one it worked, I'm just going to go back to basics this year and then switch it up in the competition.
I like it. All right. Cheers for jumping on, Mikey. Front row's done and dusted. I mean, we could have gone on for hours about it, let's be honest, but I think they're the ones that are on top of our heads, and they're the ones that we really seriously looking at. Obviously, there could be one that jumps out at us at team list, but for now, we're just working with what we have. So cheers for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Second Rowers.
Thanks, guys. Have a good